Dallas, you ready?
She caught the Katy, left me a mute to
The first time I ever saw Skip Van Winkle and David Teegarden play together, Skip's brother Bub, I think, was working with you at the time, David. And Chuck, there used to be this place in outside Detroit up towards Piney. I don't know if you remember that, but it used to be called Sherwood Forest. And they used to do monthly outdoor concerts. And they always had at least 6 to 8 bands. And the Catfish Band played there. Along that day was with Teegarden Van Winkle. And it was the first time I ever saw it. And I couldn't understand how someone could have feet that could do what they did. You know, a lot of keyboardists who play bass, most of them use their left hand and they only use one foot. Skip is one of those rare characters on the planet that played with both feet. I eventually gave him the name Skip Van Winkle and Seymour Feet. I said to him one night, we were playing at a place called F2, which was down in the Hollywood area. And they had about 50 stairs we had to climb to take the B3 up and then carry the thing back down. And I gotta tell you, we had our backs broken almost every time we played there. But I said to him, I said, I'm gonna give you a new name. He goes, what's that? I said, well, I'm gonna call your feet Seymour Feet. And he looks at me and goes, well, all right, Dallas, whatever you want. And for those of you, and I know David is affectionate about this, if you knew Skip, it was always like, well, and then you just kind of look at him and go, okay, Skip, you can finish it. Great person. I want to share a couple of quick stories and then I'm going to let some other people up here because there are other people that have known him as long as I have here tonight. I was asking David about this earlier. I walked up and tapped him on the shoulder, and you really will appreciate this story. I don't know if you've ever seen Skip or not, but usually whenever Skip was at home or at the gig or whatever, when he got an itchy nose, he had the most unique nose scratching program I've ever seen in my life. He'd go, and I'd look at him, what the hell are you doing? I'm scratching my nose, Dallas. So over the course of the years, he sat me down one day and we were just shooting the shit like we would. And he told me this story, and I had to clear it with David because I wasn't sure if it was David's mom or Jim Castley. Jim Castley was the manager of Teegarden Van Winkle during its period. And Skip was over at the house, and David let me know that it was probably Mrs. Castley. And he was sitting there at the dinner table. And she had, you know, Skip with his routine. She said to him one day, she goes, Skip, I want you to stop doing this in my house, especially at the dinner table. Because you're going to get yourself in trouble with me if you don't stop. Okay. Goes over a couple more times, and all of a sudden he's sitting at the dining table. And he goes, and Mrs. Castley goes, BAM! Right upside the face. And Skip, if you've ever seen Skip shocked, you know what I'm talking about. The look on his face was like, what was that for? She said, I told you don't do this at the table no more. He looked up and went, okay, I got it. He never did that anymore at Mama Castley's house. I love him. I'm really gonna miss him. It's hard to think of all the days and the hours we spent on the road, going out and doing shows with the Hodge brothers and Cornell Dupree and the band, and Bonnie Ray playing with us on the road, and Paul Barrera in the band with Chicken Legs, and Skip was always Skip. I never seen him, like a lot of us, get emotional to the extent of being pissed off about something. And there were plenty of times he could have been pissed off about something. You know, when his keyboard went down, or his pedals went down, or the truck broke down, he could get, me, I'd be pissing like a sumbitch. Him, well, we'll figure out somehow to get there. And he was right. He's always right. I don't remember a cross word from him. Maybe Tracy and Cody did, because they had to live with him. But I don't recall it, and for that I'm blessed. And for those of us who've known him, you're blessed. Tracy, my best to you and Cody. I was hoping I could make this without a lot. There are two people that I'm going to have come up now, before David comes up. These people worked with Skip way back in Detroit around the same time, in the era of when I was around. I started playing guitar for Skip in 1975 and was there for a couple of years, and we used to play this funky little place out on the west side of Detroit called the Dearborn Townhouse. And you always knew when you were at the Dearborn Townhouse, because you had to go under a railroad overpass, and on the other side there were these three 30-foot tall whipped cream cans for the whipped cream company that was directly next to the Dearborn Townhouse. But when you would invite friends to come out, all you do is say, come up Telegraph Road, and when you see the three whipped cream cans, you're right there. At that point, Skip was always the same. He never changed one iota during his time. He hated guitar players. I mean, you know, with the Hodge brothers, we had two guitar players. Fish played guitar and I played guitar. And boy, Skip, he was on the other side of the stage and was like, okay, you guys are far enough away, you ain't bother me. But it was like if you were playing in his program, it was like, Dallas, yes, Skippy, can you turn down a little bit? Yes, Skippy, whatever you would like. I gave him, for this event, a new name, Mr. Character, because he was a character like no other. Human being, loving husband, loving father, great friend. That's Skip Van Winkle. I'm going to ask a lady who sang with him, actually two ladies who sang with him, and I think they're going to come up and say a little bit of a word right now. Shea Chambers on vocals, who played and sang with Skip's band for several years, fought like cats and dogs with him. And a wonderful woman who also worked with Bob Seger. And actually, I got to tell the whole story about this, because the first time I ever saw her, I don't know if you remember this, Marcy, but you were working with a band called the Knockdown Party Band. You remember that band? You were a youngin'. There was this guy in Detroit, this promoter, who thought, you know, I got this great idea. He would put together this thing that he called a hall party. And you paid $5 at the door and you drank all the beer you could drink. Let me tell you, there was some sloppy ass people coming out of that joint with their pants wetter than when they walked in. Okay? But I saw Marcy for the first time at the VFW Hall on Jefferson Avenue, singing with the Knockdown Party Band. And I said that time, that gal's got a set of pipes and she's going somewhere. She went on to sing with Seeger for quite a few years. Then she went on to go with some English fella who she co-wrote Lay Down Sally with. Mr. Eric Clapton. So without any more of my nonsense, Sheila, would you and Marcy please come up now and save me? Shea Chambers, Marcy Levy.
All right, I was another chapter in the life of Skip. I actually auditioned at a place called the Odyssey. Do you remember that place, Dallas? In Dearborn? And Sean Murphy, who then was Stoney Reese, was leaving, and so I went to audition, and actually I took her place. I think I was 20, Skip was 29. I thought he was, like they all described, the most unusual and fascinating character I had ever met in my life. And I started working with him for a while. I can tell some stories, I'll try to tell fast and not drag it out, but we actually had a relationship for quite a while, but it was a very tumultuous relationship because I recommend you don't work with the same people in the industry that you know that. We all know that. So when Dallas says he never saw him mad, I can't say that. He got mad at me a lot. You know, Skip he was a rock star. He was a rock star. So he'd get really mad at me and we would have these things and then I would leave and I went to stay with my parents during one of those times, and it was Mother's Day and he called and you know, we were mad. I wasn't talking to him. So I answered the phone. You know, back then we didn't have cell phone. You don't know who was calling. And he said, he always called me Sweet Thing, or it was always Sheila Chambers. Never my first name alone. It was always, well, Sheila Chambers. He said, well, Happy Mother's Day. And I said, Happy Mother's Day? I'm not a mother. And he said, well, sometimes you are. Well, I had to laugh, of course, you know, because that's Skip. You know, everything that you all have said, there's not much that I can say except that he always was the same person. He didn't have a facade, not a cell in his body that was, you know, like some people put on a facade and they might be different in front of other people. He was never, ever different than what you all know. That was him. And after, you know, working with him, because of working with him, I worked with Robbie Krieger from The Doors. I worked with Eric Burdon. I worked with Bob Seger. All because of Skip. And one of the bands that used to come see us play at the Dearborn Townhouse was Grand Funk Railroad. They'd come in and hang out with us. And, you know, I said, you know, this guy is a rock star and basically was the most popular guy in town. I haven't seen him in a long time. It was of course shocking and heartbreaking, as all of you I know feel. So he was a chapter in my life, period. That's all I can say. And I know that we're all going to miss him, and there's nobody else like him, and I doubt there will ever be another guy like him, ever.
That was beautiful, Sheila. Thank you. I think one of my biggest regrets is that, well, I never really got to meet Tracy or Cody. I go way back with Skip. I was in a band with him back in, I think it was like 72 after I left Bob Seger, and it was a little interim period before I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. But what I can say about Skip is, aside from being an amazing musician, and well, we all know he was an incredible character, and I mean that in the best possible way, he was an incredible showman. He really loved to perform, and that's something that he instilled in me, and I think anybody that ever worked with him, right? He was incredible, just an amazing musician, and I'm not going to get into any, like, you know, stories. All I can say is that I'm really honored that I got to work with such an incredible person, an incredible musician, and I certainly wish a lot of love to Tracy and the family. Thank you so much.
I'm thinking it's time to go out to the truck and fire one up. That was always Skip's thing.
We'd do the gig, and then, Skip, where you going? Well, I'm going out to the truck. Can we go with you? Sure. Come out of the truck, big puff of smoke coming out the door. You know, we were freaking stoned to the bone by the time we got out of there. It was like, and that was back at a time when I could get high and play, and what I thought do okay. But I did learn my lesson. I don't do that anymore. Because I have a hard time remembering what day it is, let alone the song and the lyrics.